now, where he has begun his engagements in the US with a roundtable tonight with 9 top American CEOs, most of them from the financial sector. It's being organized by JP Morgan. The high-powered interaction has taken place already at the Waldorf Astoria Hotel, where the Prime Minister is staying. He's also going to be meeting Fortune 500 CEOs later today. JP Morgan, Blackstone, Warburg Pincus, other top financial institution heads are there at this meeting. The Prime Minister saying he is serious about implementing reforms, attracting top investments, or that at least is the hope that the Indian side has at the moment. Our correspondent Smita Sharma has caught up with some of them. Just listening to what they have to say after their meeting with the Prime Minister.
Ma'am, what was the biggest takeaway from that interaction really?
The biggest take would be that he continues to be very serious about implementing reforms that will make it attractive for global investors to invest in India.
But have you seen action on the ground back home in India that perhaps gives you more assurance that you could come in bigger numbers?
I would say there's still more to come, but possible changes in the bankruptcy law are an example. Decisions that he's taking to make it much easier to transact and to get your money out once you've invested. The initial decisions that he's taken have made us very optimistic.
Okay, Smita is going to get us more voices. I want to go straight to her there in New York. Smita, CEO diplomacy seems to be the buzzword at the moment there in New York. On the ground, is there a visible buzz that the Prime Minister has been able to create in these meetings with these foreign investors at a time when, of course, India has been worried about the after effects of a global slowdown, about China's concerns of a slowing economy? Is the sense that you're getting there on ground zero that the Prime Minister has been able to send out a powerful message to the CEOs? What was the message that he sent out? Okay, we'll just take a look at some graphics though. As you see those pictures where the Prime Minister is there with various leaders, $34 billion was the FDI inflow into India in 2014. There was a 22% rise in FDI over the previous year. 19.78 billion FDI dollars received from 12 nations that Mr. Modi invested. This was said by the government on the floor of Parliament. $75 billion is what UAE has pledged to invest in an infrastructure fund. $35 billion is what is expected by Japan. $20 billion is what China has promised to invest. $10 billion investment has been promised by South Korea. So let's go straight across to Smita Sharma. Smita, give us a sense of the Prime Minister's message to the CEOs this morning, really, in where you are, or evening where I am.
Well, Rajdeep, yes, it is a bright morning in New York and at the Waldorf Hotel where we are, and the Prime Minister, in fact, is on the 4th floor of the same hotel. He had that 60 minutes of interaction, which was the first event with which he kicked off his day one in New York, the financial roundtable. But it was essentially more about, allaying concerns, about trying to answer questions and apprehensions, to try and get in notes from the CEOs of these investor funds, of these investment companies that the dollars could come in for India. I'm joined here, Rajdeep, in fact, by Raj Chingappa, the Group Editorial Director for India Today. Raj, what is the sense that you got, because when the CEOs came out, they all sounded very upbeat. Modi is very eloquent, so you think he was able to sort of allay those apprehensions that they might have?
I think the reception's been different from what it was last year. Last year, he was the rock star. He had a lot of promise. Today, people are saying deliver on that. So I think much of what the CEOs said today was great. I mean, so far so good, but there are lots of nuts and bolts issues that have to be sorted out, whether it's on infrastructure, taxation, all the nitty-gritty issues that were there. The only thing going this time is that with China down, the businessmen are a bit cautious not to get to, India is still looking very good and is brighter in terms of prospects.
You know, in fact, I put that question to Vicky Fuller, who's the Chief Investment Officer of New York Retirement Fund, Rajdeep, and she seemed to suggest that both India and China have different governance structures, but there's enough money on the investors' table for both. Having said that, Raj, what do you think would be the two big assurances that Narendra Modi might have had to give today in this meeting?
Well, essentially that he's going to keep the, speed up reforms. That's what they're looking at. Everyone expected him to be a sort of a revolutionary leader, but he's both on the land bill and things like that, he's turned cautious. So I think they're saying, get a move on. We are wanting to put our money in. We'd like to see Indian investment grow, but show us the results.
They do seem to have trust in Narendra Modi, the man. They think that he is pro-reform.
Sure. And as I said earlier, China is down. So India looks very interesting. And the only thing they need to get is the act together. Make it swifter. They talked of infrastructure. They said that taxation issues that they need to, sort out. They're all puzzled about what's happening with the GST. When is it going to happen? So I think he just needs to increase the pace of whatever he's doing.
And it was just the first event really, Rajdeep, but remember for his stay in New York, it is going to be packed with, there's a dinner tonight as well with those CEOs of the Fortune 500 companies. There's a media roundtable. All of these, of course, are closed to the media traveling with him, of course, from India, whether on board or separately. And interestingly, while we were talking about the India-China story, this is one hotel, Rajdeep, which has housed several American presidents across centuries, but now has been taken over by the Chinese. Perhaps one of the reasons why Barack Obama is not staying here, and he definitely wants to do business with Narendra Modi at the moment.
I just want to ask you about those two meetings. That we are told there's one round table which Rupert Murdoch, media mogul, has organized. What is the focus of that? And we are told at the dinner there's going to be some special kind of dhokla which has been organized by a Michelin chef, Mr. Khanna. So just give us a sense about that Murdoch meeting first.
Yes. Rajdeep, as far as that Murdoch meeting is concerned, he's perhaps going to, try and send out his larger messages, because he's coming here trying to sell those Make in India, Digital India concepts. And he knows that the best way to get across a message, despite your love-hate relationship with the media back home, it's about trying to get onto that international platform and send across that message. I'll just try and get a quick sense from Raj. Raj, when he goes into that round table organized by the media mogul Rupert Murdoch, what do you think will be the crux of that meeting, really?
Again, the focus is going to be on economy, opening out. They want other sectors to open out as well, whether media also, they're contemplating on it. And, the larger message of the New York sector is all economy. If you look at the way they divided, it's economy. On the first day, tomorrow he's going to be speaking at the UN. Then he flies off to San Jose, and it's all about communication, information technology, digital India, the young Google chaps. So I think his plan is stripped well.
There's those distinct features, Rajdeep, about trying to, of course, talk economy, trying to talk global policies, but also trying to sell those Digital India initiatives. And yes, Chef Vikas Khanna, in fact, is cooking a lot of those dhoklas, but we are being told that Narendra Modi is actually having just one meal a day. Sometimes every time he travels to the US, perhaps he goes low as far as his diet is concerned.
I don't know where he then gets all this energy from, but clearly the Prime Minister now doing some hard selling, and I like the way Raj Chengappa put it. Last year he was a rock star, now he has to get back to business. This time it's not so much about the surround sound, it's about the hard dollars. And will the Americans give us those hard dollars or not? Smita Sharma, Raj Chengappa, appreciate your joining us there from the Waldorf Astoria. Let's look at that bigger question of CEO diplomacy. Is the Prime Minister's CEO diplomacy actually working on the ground? Meera Shankar, former Indian ambassador to the United States, is joining me. Sambit Patra of the BJP and Sanjay Jha of the Congress are also joining me to get political reactions. I hope to be joined by Sumant Sinha, the founder, chairman and CEO of Renew Power Ventures. But Meera Shankar, let me come to you first. Do you believe that the Prime Minister's pitch to CEOs actually works in hard dollars coming into the country? Yes, there is interest in India. There is excitement at times about India, but where are the hard, big dollars coming? In fact, the worry has been that as the US economy strengthens, there will be an outflow back to Washington.
Well, right now, India is in a sweet spot because amongst the emerging markets, you are now about the, top performing economy with China and you having the same rate of growth in the last quarter, Chinese growth having come down.
Yes.
But I think there is a sluggishness of demand in the Indian economy, and even domestic investors are not really investing. What we've seen is a big flow of foreign institutional investors who invest in the stock market. But FDI, I think it takes a while to come. And all these meetings do help because
is that your experience?
Creates a kind of momentum.
Is that your experience that all these meetings help, or is this simply about photo opportunities?
Yes, it is. No, it is my experience that these meetings help because the CEOs want to gauge, how committed is the government to openness, to reform, and to actual implementation, because I think that is really where the devil lies.
That's the key point, the implementation. And I want to come to you, Sambit Patra and Sanjay Jha, for a moment, because Sushma Swaraj, or the government in Parliament, claims that Mr. Modi's visits have ensured that there has been a quadruple rise in actual inflows. They claim that 2014-15, this is Nirmala Sitharaman's written reply in the Rajya Sabha, that there has been a growth wherever the Prime Minister has gone in FDI inflows. But what about implementation, actual implementation of projects?
Whom do you ask this, Rajdeep, first?
Mr. Patra.
Yes. Yes, Rajdeep. Look, first and foremost, for the visuals that I am getting to see with the Prime Minister of India, Mr. Narendra Modi, standing tall amongst the businessmen and other functionaries, it's absolutely a pleasant sight. We have a Prime Minister who is a very hard-working Prime Minister, and I believe the fate of India is gradually changing, as most of the experts are also suggesting. As far as the implementation in the ground is concerned, yes, it is being implemented. Gradually we are moving ahead, and that's the reason as to why even the CEOs, they have shown their faith on Mr. Narendra Modi, on the Prime Minister of the country. And as far as the GST bill and the land bill is concerned, I think rather than me answering this question, that should be left to Mr. Sanjay Jha to answer as to why GST and land bill, the two important pillars of the growth story, were in fact kept at bay at the insistence and stubbornness of Congress.
Sanjay Jha, and I want to I would request you to keep your answers a little short today, Sanjay. The fact is the FDI, according to the government, now these are government figures, has grown after the launch of Make in India program in September 2014. Inflows have jumped 48%, says the government, between October 2014 and April 2015. They also claim that among the countries that Mr. Modi has visited, Japan, South Korea, China, France, UAE have all committed to investing in the country. Do you believe that the CEO diplomacy of Mr. Modi is working?
Well, Rajdeep, I'll skip the rhetoric and I'll come down straight to hard numbers, because that's what we should focus on.
Yes.
If you look at Mr. Modi's overall, travel, he's gone to approximately close to 30 countries since he's taken over. And if you aggregate, and we have done that, we have aggregated all the hype and hoopla over the
20
promises
countries
made of how much FDI is going to come in. The total aggregate FDI, if you include all the countries, is 180 billion. What has come into India is 19 billion. And I will tell you what is bad news for Mr. Patra here, that the US dollar is standing taller than Mr. Modi at the moment by a significant few inches. The other point which is very critical, and this is something that I need to tell you, that without all the drama, the PR, the publicity and all the blitzkrieg, in 2012, when India was still recovering, rather the world was recovering from the Great Recession of 2008, the UPA, under the Congress-led UPA, got 46 billion then. Now half the year is over, and more than half the year is over from the calendar period that you have taken, and you got 19 billion. So clearly the story isn't working out. And the bottom line behind that, Rajdeep, is that today, while we keep talking about Make in India at home, the truth is the world all over, including America and China, everyone is focusing on domestic manufacturing. For us to say that we will manufacture here and we'll export, well, everybody wants to look home to create jobs and, centralize the entire process of creating a better infrastructure as well as modern industry.
The bigger question, of course, Meera Shankar, and I don't want to make it Congress versus BJP. This is one of the issues which we need to look at purely from a point of view of national interest. Sure. You were ambassador to the US when Manmohan Singh regularly visited. For all those visits in that critical period, once the Indian economy went into a downward spiral post 2010-11, the fact is the Americans just looked at other options. America's interest is often its own interest. America's business is its own business. Do you believe that India is top of the mind, really?
Well, it's not top of the mind. But there are so many global crises at the moment which are top of the mind. And also there are two other important visitors in the US, Pope Francis and of course President Xi. So what it does do, however, is that governments create the environment. Investment has to be by private business, and business will go where they see profits and where they see that there is consistency. Towards the end, I think, of the term of the last government, there was a sense that the political risks of doing business in India had become too high, that the level of political contention in the Indian economy was making policies unstable.
Right.
And I think that is something that we perhaps need to ponder over, that we do need a consensus between the two main parties on where we want to take the country and on core areas of reform.
That's precisely it in a way, Sambit Patra. The Prime Minister is trying to reach out to America, and it is, it is an important step that every time the Prime Minister makes an effort to meet Fortune 500 companies, he's going this time to the West Coast as well. The real solutions are lying home. The Prime Minister is going to have to ensure that manufacturing picks up at home, growth picks up at home. The foreigners will come in only if they see opportunity. And if there is no opportunity available, if reform is not fast enough, it is only incremental, then all these visits, Sambit, with due respect to you and the Prime Minister, will end up as photo ops.
No, the foreigners, in fact, the investors are seeing all these good things that you are talking about, and that's the reason as to why in the recent Pew survey, it was aptly stated that, well, yes, the reforms are in place, not only in country but abroad as well. There is a sense of well-being, and in fact many of the followers of the Congress at home in fact are falling in line with what Mr. Modi ji's policies think about. So definitely, as far as policy is concerned, not just the Pew Research Survey but most of the international rating agencies, including the S&P and the Moore and all, they have all spoken high about the reform agenda, that, well, yes, here is a government which is performing. And remember, the same rating agencies in the last few years of the UPA government had categorically mentioned about the policy paralysis, which was in fact the reason as to why the Congress finished itself in India. So this government is performing. The Prime Minister stands tall. He has the trust of the business community and trust of the tallest leaders of the world, shows that India is heading in the right direction.
Okay, I'm going to leave it there. You've made your political pitch for the Prime Minister in New York, and Sanjay Jha has been more critical. Meera Shankar has given us hopefully a more neutral perspective. I appreciate all three of you joining us. We're going to continue to track the Prime Minister's meetings.